they put me based on my size into the running back position, and basically just hold on to the ball really tight and run. That was the only thing. That was my only job.
Yeah.
My rookie year, just
played to your strengths.
Yeah. Just run, follow your blocks, and don't let go of that ball.
Yeah.
And so that was like my first year, and obviously each year you learn a little bit more, and
like any trait, hobby, skill.
The standards for you each year, it increases, and you have to meet those expectations.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So maybe we can start with like a quick intro of yourself. Like I particularly, as I mentioned before, am interested in talking to you because you've experienced a lot of success in the world of sports, and to a point where you are still like a global champ, or I don't know what the phrase would be, but clearly are better than everyone else on the earth on one subject, which I think is super cool. But if you don't mind giving like an intro of yourself, then we can kind of jump into like your background and different mindsets throughout your life, stuff like that.
Okay. Do you want me to look at the camera? Or
No, you can talk to me. Okay. I'm going to look back and forth only because sometimes this thing gets all wonky. But it's up to you.
Okay. Well, my name is Adriana Gutierrez, and I am 26 years old. I'm a student at San Diego State University. Expected to graduate in spring of 2024 with my public health degree. And I've been playing women's tackle football since 2017. So it's going on 6 years right now, and I've had a lot of success throughout my career. Mainly within the past 2 years, I was the #1 leading rusher in our league last year for 2022, and currently #2 leading rusher again for 2023. I made the U.S. national team, and we are world champions. We just went to Finland this past summer, and we won that. And let's see what else. Most valuable player, offensive player of the year, 2021 and 2022.
Saw a lot of success in that realm.
Yeah.
Just kind of jumped into it.
So basically, like, this sport has just been like very giving to me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I mean, you and I know each other since 6th grade, right? But we knew each other also from soccer, and I feel like a lot of, and I mean, probably a lot of professional women athletes at some point started sports early on. You happen to start in soccer. Like, do you mind kind of walking through, growing up an athlete, I guess?
Yeah, so I've played soccer since I was 4 years old. In Mira Mesa, AYSO, grew up playing that, and I've basically always stuck with soccer. A lot of people try other sports. Something kind of I regret now thinking about it. I wish I would have tried other sports. It would just make you a more well-rounded athlete, when you play all of these different sports. But growing up, I loved soccer. Like, that was my first love. So there was no other sport I wanted to try. I just wanted to play soccer. I played 1 year of basketball, was not very great at that. I cheerleaded when I was younger, but it was strictly soccer. So I always just, tournaments, every weekend we were doing something with soccer, and I just always remembered wanting to just be one of the best players on my team and just working hard. I'd be up early in the morning before school, just juggling in my front yard from when I was little. And then just like growing up, as I got older, I would start playing with the boys. So like we would, at Orange Glen in Escondido, on Saturday morning, I didn't have anything to do. I would go out there and I would play football with the boys, and I just knew that was going to help my game. So at a young age, I've always taken the extra step that I need to do to be better for me and for my team. And so, that's...
And do you feel like you chose soccer to get into, or was that something that maybe your parents put you in and over time you realized you were good at it, and then that's kind of what helped you stick to it? Or what would you say is, like, made you like soccer aside from just wanting to be like better at it?
I don't know. I think my parents just stuck, I feel like everyone
gets tossed into the sport at some point. Yeah.
Especially soccer. I feel like a lot of people get tossed into soccer when they're younger, and you either like it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I liked it, and so I liked that there was some aggression in there. You could shove, and I like that, and so I think it was me. Like my parents. I remember my parents trying to helped me do other sports, encouraged me to do other sports.
Yeah.
But I wanted to stick to soccer.
Yeah, and it's also a highly competitive outlet for women's sports as well, because even if we think about the U.S. is the best, I mean, bias, of course, but is the best U.S. women's team and has probably the most competitive leagues for youth and adults and everything in between. So I'm assuming that that must have been, one of the main reasons that you at least liked it, because of the level of competition compared to maybe jumping into, let's say, like basketball or another sport, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And then let's say, you did it throughout college, but then at 2017, you jumped into the world of
football.
Yeah. So how did that
transition
go or come about, or?
Yeah. So I played a year for soccer. Played a year up in the Bay Area, a private Catholic school called Notre Dame Nemours University. And that year that I played soccer there, I was very burnt out. It was just a lot going on. I think I really just fell out of love with soccer.
Yeah, a lot going on with because school was a heavy workload. You're away from home.
Exactly. I'm away from my family. I feel very lonely. It's my first year living on my own, going to school on my own, playing soccer on my own, and just being I really give it to players who are student athletes at the top, the highest level, because it's tough. I mean, I was at a D2 school, and it would be wake up, morning gym sessions, classes, lunch, practice in the evening. It was just all the time.
Highly competitive. Very
highly competitive. And I think I just, I think I burnt myself out from playing soccer since I was 4.
Yeah.
I got there, and I don't know, I think there was a lot of other things that I was battling mentally and emotionally that kind of just affected how I felt about soccer in general. So I talked to my parents, and I decided that I was going to come back home my second year. So I finished my first year there, came back home, and you remember Day Day? She I don't know if you know, but
I forgot. She was I totally forgot, but she was really into the women's football.
So she was playing for the San Diego Surge before I did, and when I got back, I don't even remember. I think we were at a park or something, and we were hanging out, and she told me about women's tackle football. It was the first time I'd ever heard about it.
Yeah, and she's an athlete too.
And she's an athlete, and she was just talking to me about it, talking to me about some of the coaches, the players. She's like, you should try it. And then I was like, okay, I'm the type of person that I like to try new things, especially with sports. I like the idea of doing, I don't know, I just wanted to try something different. Yeah. So she told me about that, and she's like, but tryouts are tomorrow. I'm like, no way, tryouts are tomorrow. Yeah. So I went to tryouts the next day, and obviously I'm an athlete. I go to the gym, I'm fast, soccer. Yeah. So I just went to tryouts and figured I had nothing to lose. Yeah. And tried out, and since 2017, and have stuck with it since. Yeah.
Decided to take a risk. Yeah. Saw the reward of it, and now it's one of your passions as an adult, right? Yeah. Okay. And then would you say that, so I guess maybe jumping into, you just found out about it, you jump into now the first day of tryouts, and this is a professional women's team, local to San Diego. Yes. And I know that at least from soccer, you're really fast at running. Did you find yourself more on an offensive position or defensive position, or? Definitely offense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, just the running came natural. Yeah. The cuts, the cuts you use with the ball, I just did that without a ball at my feet. Now the ball's in my hand. Yeah. So they put me based on my size, into the running back position, and basically just hold on to the ball really tight and run. That was the only thing. That was my only job. Yeah. My rookie year, just
played to your strengths.
Yeah. Just run, follow your blocks, and don't let go of that ball. Yeah. And so that was my first year, and obviously each year you learn a little bit more, and
like any trait, hobby, skill.
The standards for you each year, it increases, and you have to meet those expectations. Yeah. But yeah.
And then, so on that first day of tryouts, how would you describe the atmosphere? Was it something where you felt like a total oddball out because you didn't know anyone? Did you feel like, oh man, I'm with other top tier athletes, so I feel like I'm fitting in? Or were you scared? What was your thought process throughout the journey?
I have to think about that. I definitely felt like I maybe I shouldn't say like stuck out, or maybe just I think people knew like I didn't belong there. Like they knew that I was new.
Okay. Probably the same crowd of people trying out each year, and they all know each other. And you're all of a sudden this brand new person.
Exactly. Yeah. And like everyone is like wearing like long basketball shorts, and I'm over here in like my soccer shorts, and they're shorter, and I'm like, okay, maybe I just didn't look the part.
Okay.
And so I think that brought some attention. But people noticed that I was an athlete. They saw I was fast.
Yeah.
But I love the environment. And you're right. There was I think a couple years before that, the San Diego Surge won a championship. And so all of their veteran players were coming back. So they all knew each other. They've been friends for a long time, majority of them. But I love the environment. Everything was like, it was like a huge camaraderie. Mm-hmm. It was just different than soccer. And so I liked being there. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Mm-hmm. And so it was a good feeling.
Yeah. And so tryouts, you made the team, right? First try, kudos. But so you made the team, and then what was it like after that? Was it now a twice a week type of routine where you're practicing? I know there's on seasons, off seasons, but like this is a brand new sport to you. So like walk me through like you ramping up into that sport.
Well, that first year, my rookie year, I found a pretty solid group of veteran teammates who eventually became my friends, and I kind of just like followed in their footsteps. The commitment was for practices. I think it was like 2 days a week, maybe 3 days a week, two actual like hitting practices, and then a Friday where we're going through walkthroughs, and then we'll have Saturday games. Okay. So let's say like 4 days out of the week, I'm committing to soccer. Yeah. To football.
Yeah. The other football.
The other soccer. Yeah. But I grinded really hard my rookie year. I don't think that I grinded harder than that first year. I mean, I was living in Escondido, and I wanted to be a part of their 5 a.m. group in Chula Vista. Wow. So I would wake up at 3:30 a.m. and I would leave my house at 4 a.m. in Escondido to drive an hour to Chula Vista to make it to their 5 a.m. workout. It was that group of veteran ladies who I was following in their footsteps and just trying to be mentors, and coaches and teammates. And I did what they did. The workouts they were doing, I was doing. Yeah. The field work that they were doing after, I was doing that too. I mean, I'm talking like 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. we were all together in the weight room, and we were putting in a lot of work together. Yeah. And so that was, I don't know I can't remember if we did that every day, but we did it a lot. Yeah. And I mean, that's something that I remember I'm committing to, and I'm going to do this. I put on great muscle, and that kind of just set the tone for the rest of even now. I think back to that time, and I think about the ladies that I was working with in the weight room, and there's somebody. Yeah. They're important people, they're inspirational, motivational people. They're still working hard, regardless if they're playing football or not. That's just the type of people they are. They're go-getters. Yeah. And so I'm so grateful to having met them, and like that being my first year being with those girls and being in the weight room. Yeah. And they kind of just like helped me realize, like, if you want to be great, like these are the things that you need to do apart from those 4 days a week that you're in football. Yeah. And they showed me that without telling me that. Yeah. If that makes
without
sense.
You even fully understanding, maybe.
At the time, yeah. But now looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful for that, because some people don't realize that, like, it's not about what you do in front of people. It's not just about showing up and participating. Like, you need to put in this work when no one is watching. Yeah. And so, I mean, I was extremely committed to just, I felt like I had nothing to lose. Yeah. I had everything to gain just by being there and working hard. Yeah. I knew that I was going to get better just by being around so many great women. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like a few things that come to mind for me. I feel like, both in sports and people who are fantastic at any other, art, skill, whatever, a lot of them, or at least the best ones, are usually very grateful for their mentors, purely because, I mean, you jumped into a brand new environment and like, yes, you put in the work, absolutely. But fortunately you had, some best practices or thoughts from people who probably made mistakes back in the day that now you got to learn from.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you made mistakes that you got to share with people coming in younger than you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then the other thing that comes to mind is you mentioned that, on the other side of that coin, like, yes, you had some great mentors, but you, at the end of the day, were putting in the work and you put in the long hours. And like, I'm a big proponent. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, like Extreme Ownership. So do you know who Jocko Willink is?
No.
Okay. He's like some Navy SEAL guy, retired, but basically took a lot of, philosophy and principles that he learned out on like actual war, like in Iraq. And then basically said, okay, here's all these, life lessons I learned from war and why they're relevant to human nature and how we can apply that to the world of business. So it's all about mindset, but the main, common denominator is you have to take extreme ownership with yourself.
Yeah.
And like, even if, let's say I'm like a manager or a coach and there's someone underneath me who's not performing, I have to hold myself accountable to holding them accountable. Yeah. And like, that's the only way that any organization is going to work, let alone someone being successful at said topic.
Yeah.
So, okay, so like you jumped in, you found like a good clique of people to learn from. You were putting in the work and the long hours, and then maybe like, did you first have like a big tournament after the first year, or did you just immediately jump into a season, or like what was like year one looking like, and then like year 2 through 5, let's say?
Well, year 1 we so I tried out, and so we had our first season. We were in the league. What league were we in? I think we were in the WFA. And then my second year, same thing. We went to a different league. I think it was the IWFL. So there's a bunch of women's leagues in women's football.
Yeah.
There's several. And then my third year with the San Diego Surge was the WNFC, the Women's National Football Conference, which is still the league I'm in. The San Diego Surge folded, and now I play for the San Diego Rebellion.
Okay.
And so my 3 years post the San Diego Surge, I was still with the WNFC. So
and that's like the highest league of like available leagues in the U.S.
Yeah. The WNFC is ran by the founder is this lady. Her name is Odessa Jenkins. She was actually my running back coach for the U.S. national team.
Nice.
And she is just amazing. Like, she is so inspirational. Like, you just meet someone and they have so much energy and they want to give so much.
Yeah.
This is the type of person that she is. So this is her league, and it's like Adidas sponsors us, like Dick sponsors us. Like, we have so many sponsorships, and we have so many eyes, and just like the content we're putting on social media. I know this is kind of veering from your question.
No, I mean, it's a world that is meaningful to you and helped you be passionate about your said topic, and then you got really good at it. So it all is relevant, for sure.
So that league is still the league I'm a part of, but it's definitely from like my first year to my last year, or to this year, it's been different. Each year it's gotten better, especially within the WNFC. I think the WNFC, this is going on their 4th year. I think their 4th year. And so every year it gets better.
Because it's becoming more popular, I assume, too, so more talent is getting pulled in.
More talent, more just eyes. I mean, we have subscription now where people can buy our live streams, and so it's been a long time coming. Like, even before me, players have been playing for like 2 decades, and they're still playing football. And so what they experienced 20 years ago is not what I experienced just 6 years ago.
Totally.
So within 6 years, I've seen so much growth. I can't even imagine the growth they've seen with women's football. Like you said, it wasn't a tournament. It was this season that I jumped into, and
would you say that that was a full-time basically job for you, where like you got multiple practices per week? Like, was that the main task that you were focused on in life? Were you trying to juggle school at the same time? Family, relationships, stuff like that? Yeah,
that's right. 2017, we're going back to my rookie year, the time where I was working out at 5 a.m. I was also going to school. So I think I was going to Palomar. I was getting my associate's degree. And so right after I would work out from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., I would go straight to Palomar. So Chula Vista all the way to San Marcos. And then I would do my class, or go to class. I'm trying to remember I did work. I worked at PacSun. I've had a couple of jobs, PacSun, Planet Fitness. These are just like part-time jobs to like help me get through school. So I've always juggled school and work for as long as I can remember. Hopefully graduate next year. So that's done.
You're doing the right things.
Yeah. It's just taking me a little bit longer when it comes to school, but
and you've had other worldly accomplishments that clearly are going to take time and energy. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah, but I would agree that football is, you get what you put in. Yeah. So for me, it is a full-time job. You think about being present for field or for games and for practices, but also like we have to watch film. Like, you have to know your opponent, and I want to know my opponent better than they think that they know me. Because I want to use their my strengths to my advantage. And use their weaknesses against them. So you watch film, you study your playbook. I mean, like, there's just football, like, geeks, like, nerds, like, we love that stuff. Like, we could be watching football all the time, over and over. So, it's a full-time job. I would say for the last 6 years, football has been my full-time job. I've worked and I've gone to school. And one thing to point out there, again, like, both with people who are very successful in sports or business or whatever, each of them, or a lot of them, really prioritize pursuing excellence, right? Like, I'm not going to speak for you, but I would almost imagine you're probably more evaluating how you were yesterday compared to how you compare to other people, right? Like, you're always trying to improve yourself. Yeah, absolutely. I think that I heard someone say this to me. Someone told me this about a month ago, that like you're always searching for the perfect game. And I thought that was just amazing, just so real and like raw. Like, you're right. Because I can't tell you, honestly, what my best game was. Because in my opinion, I don't like any of the games that I played. Because I know I can do better than that. There are certain plays that I'm like, well, I did great. I did good on that play. But I wouldn't say like I've had my best game yet. Like, I'm still searching for that perfect game.
You like to be better than you were the day before.
The perfect game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think I do, apart from like what you just said, I think I do compare myself to other people. I think that's something that I need to work on. And I look at it, I don't maybe compare myself. Maybe it's that like I really just want to be the best. At my position, at my sport.
You find yourself analyzing other people to maybe how you can adopt that yourself, or
like I know so many great running backs in our league, and a couple of them are like my really good friends. And I watch how they run, and I'm not comparing, but I'm like, maybe I'm admiring some of the ways, how a certain player can just hit the hole and just use their speed to their advantage, like a straightaway line. So I try to take something away. In general, in life, like, I'm always like, what can I take away from people so that I can learn myself? Totally. So I think that I do the same thing with football too. I just take a look at people's play and like, okay, I like what she did there and what she did there, and I try to implement it in my own game and like in my own craft, but still being me, obviously, because I don't want to like be like anyone else, but I don't want to be like myself. But I do admire some of these qualities and skills that other players have. So and I know like another psychology statistic, but they say that one of the few traits that can predict success for people is conscientiousness. So like, you're thinking about, okay, how can I do this better? Whether it's working out or eating or whatever, right? Like, you're someone who's just naturally trying to get better at it, clearly, right? Because you're a good athlete, you did well, you work out, stuff like that. And then one of the sports psychology books that I like a lot and always recommend to people is How Champions Think. Have you ever heard of that? No. So it's basically, it's a sports psychologist. I think he did like 30 or 40 years of work. And basically worked with a lot of famous golfers, worked with a lot of famous athletes. And like, one major chapter in his book is basically LeBron James, who clearly, if you look at the guy, is insanely talented. But when he had the chance to sit down with LeBron James, he was like, yes, this man is physically gifted, but he also is like tunnel vision on how can I be exceptional? How can I be the number one person at this activity as humanly possible? And part of like
one, every individual and human's different, so you need your own personalized game plan or routine to get better, right? Because you're going to have weaknesses that someone else doesn't have. But basically, one of the chapters on LeBron James are talking about how, they want his mindset is what helps keep him motivated. So part of his routine was, watch about 30 minutes of, it could be more, watch about 30 minutes of you juking other people out, footage where you're pumping yourself up.
Yeah.
And then after that, make 200 three-pointers. And it's like every single day you have to make 200 of them. And clearly you're going to, get better over time because you're just, just doing more and more of it. So it's funny because a lot of that clearly does translate into how people, successful athletes, think about how they perform each day.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And just you saying that, it was just funny to hear you say LeBron James watching videos of him joking out people.
Yeah,
it's interesting because my Instagram account, my like AG page, I don't know if you follow it. Do we follow each other?
I think so.
Okay, so I have two. I have my private and I have my personal, and or my private and my whatever.
Yeah.
My it's called AG, and so I had made that account for me.
Yeah.
Really, it was for me. It was an athlete page, but I post things that inspire me or that are important to me.
Yeah.
And then I have my highlights and put things on my stories. And so for me to pump myself up, sometimes I'm I will look at my page and I will look at all the way down to the first video or pictures I would post and just my progress. I like looking at my highlight videos and just seeing, the film that I've put on my stories. Of just me as a person and as an athlete. And so I thought that was interesting because I kind of do the same thing. I just like to watch. Yeah. It encourages me.
Yeah, and another thing that I learned from this book is for sports specifically, they usually say that you want to put laser focus into how you're practicing, and when it comes time to the gameplay, you don't want to overthink things. You want to just trust that the training you've done will pay off.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they say if you're training for some big tournament, do your 200 shots, your 200 whatever, but in the moment, you're not supposed to be thinking about your technique. Just have fun, be optimistic, and that's kind of where that chapter was one, you want to, and this is kind of a stoicism thing too. Have I talked to you about that? Mm-mm. It's kind of an old Greek philosophy, long story, a lot of good stuff on there. But basically one of the main lessons is if you can, there's only so much you can control, but in the moment, if you can control trying to be optimistic, you tend to be a lot more relaxed, you tend to be a lot more at ease, and then you're less likely to make a goofy shot or to trip or something like that. And it kind of ties into another book that I always recommend to people, which is Atomic Habits, if you've ever heard of that. But it's basically one of the main preachings is it's not about the goals you have, it's about the systems you have. So it's if you have two teams in a final, they both want to win clearly, but the one who's going to win is probably the one who had a really good training, regime and stuff like that, because they're focused on the process of developing versus just, I'm really excited and I really want to win. It's totally different. So it kind of ties into, kind of what we're talking about. Yeah. So, and then let's see. So back to you jumping in, you're a couple years in now. Walk me through when you saw joining the the World Cup. I know I'm a total soccer guy, so I don't even know a lot about men's football, so apologies, but walk me through when you first saw oh crap, I actually may be going to this big international tournament, and then going there, and then what was your perspective? So
it's interesting because the first time I had heard about the U.S. women's national team was my rookie year, 2017. I believe that in 2017, they had just gotten, some of my Surge teammates had just gotten back from their national team in 2017. So I was at tryouts, like I had mentioned earlier, and I heard people talking about that. And so here I am. I have no idea how to play football, but I don't know if I told you, but I have always enjoyed watching football. Growing up with my dad, he's my stepdad, but he's my dad. That was our bonding.
I was I met him when I was 14.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah. So that was how we bonded. was watching football.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why also too I love football so much.
Felt natural.
Yeah, it just my dad would have to like limit me, like you only can ask 5 questions because I would just keep asking. He's like, I'm trying to enjoy this.
That's
game.
me today.
Yeah, right. So always loved it. But anyways, I heard about the U.S. national team at tryouts, and I thought that was so cool. Like, I want to be. Once I heard that was the highest that you could get to, I wanted to.
Once you heard it was possible and within your reach.
Yeah. I'm like, some of my teammates or future teammates are there. That's I want to be there.
Yeah.
So I legitimately remember coming home after practice and telling my parents about tryouts and how it went, and I told my dad, like, I looked him in the eyes and I was like, one day I'm going to be a part of that team. Mm-hmm. Like, I said that in 2017 when I had no idea how to follow blocks, what football, everything that was going to entail getting there. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I knew that I was going to. So I don't know why I decided that I wanted to do that, but if that was the highest I could go, I wanted to get there. Yeah,
and there's something to say about once you see that a goal is within reach, a lot of people tend to get a lot more motivated because it's like, oh crap, I can actually accomplish that if I, build a plan or put in the work. Mm-hmm. So, but go ahead.
Yeah. So that was back, my first year, and I wouldn't say like I lost track of that. I always remembered that was in the back of my mind, like that was a goal of mine. I didn't know how the process was going to be. I went through it, and I still don't even, I'm unsure of like what happened really, but I just knew that I had to keep working hard each year and, stay consistent and be a part of the process and just every year get better. So 2022 was when the next U.S. national team was going.
Is it like every 4 years?
It's supposed to be every 4 years. Yeah. It was kind of postponed because of COVID.
Yeah.
So in 2022, it was, my San Diego Rebellion teammates were telling me I needed to try out, and so I did. I went. I think it was in Florida. We flew to Florida. I tried out, and actually I didn't even make the roster at first.
Really?
Yeah, so I didn't make the team. I thought I had a pretty decent tryout, but I didn't make it. We tried out, and then like a couple weeks later, or I don't know, 3 weeks later, they sent out an email, and my name wasn't on the list.
Mm-hmm. And how did you feel about your performance, aside from the results? Like, do you feel like you did your best, like, in that moment? Do you feel like, oh crap, maybe I was nervous because it was your first time at the tryout, or what was going through your head at the time?
It was a 2-day tryout, and the first day I felt like I felt really nervous, and I felt like that prohibited me from being calm and collective and
totally.
So I think that I didn't have a good practice or a good tryout my first time, but then the second time they split us into 2 groups, right? A running back group. They split us into 2 groups. I'm looking around the group that I'm in, and I'm like, I need to be in that other group. That's the A group. This
gotcha.
Is the B group.
Okay, so you were able to pick up on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So for me and the player I am, I think that I play best when I'm angry. And I've, read some books, and I've like to listen to like podcasts, and some of the greatest players like say like you need to tap into this like, anger and
this beast mode type of thing.
Yeah. And so that's a different story, but I'll go back. But I was angry. I was really upset because I think that I deserve to have a shot in the A group. Mm-hmm. So I think from that was the second practice. From that day, till the end of the day, that morning to the end, I just like really kicked it up a notch. And was like, okay, I'll show you guys. Like, I'll show you I can play. And so I think that I had a great second practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, the roster came out, and my name wasn't on the list, and
this is like a week after you flew home?
I want to say it took some time, like 3 weeks to a month maybe. The final roster ended up coming out. Like who made the team, my name wasn't in the email. And so I don't remember being angry or being sad. I just remembered thinking that I needed to keep going because eventually there's going to be another U.S. national team, even if it was 4 years from now. So I stayed the course. I continued to work hard, and I mean, in the gym, we had new players coming internationally for our rebellion team, who really helped me. They also play the same position as me.
Yeah.
So
what type of countries are they coming from?
Sweden and Mexico.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know I kept seeing some stuff on the Mexico tackle football team. Someone on the news who gets interviewed a lot.
Yeah.
She was in a commercial.
Yeah. So them two, they're younger than me. They came over here to the States to play with us last year, and one of them is with us again. So here I am, not making the national team. Then I have two new great running backs coming in, and I want to keep my position.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a starter. I want to keep my spot.
Yeah.
So I had so much to fight for. And they really just, when you're around better competition, you elevate.
For sure.
You know, and so that's what I think that year was for me. This new talent is coming in, these fresh bodies, we all elevated. And so like I said, I stayed the course. And I'm also not an extremely religious person, but I did prayed and talked to God as much as I could.
Yeah.
And just asked to just for him to just keep me grounded and to be positive.
Yeah.
So I stayed positive. I worked really hard, and 2022 was like a breakout year for me.
Yeah.
This past year, like I said,
noticed a lot of progress from having that fire under your butt, basically.
Yeah. That was the year that I led the league in rushing yards, and I was the second leader in touchdowns. All of these accomplishments. And finally, I remember one day I was at the mall, and then I get a text message from the head coach of the U.S. national team. Right? They haven't gone yet. We haven't played. Like, our season is ending, and then the U.S. national team forms. Right?
Okay. So it's basically like when you didn't get put on the roster, that was for that World Cup, and then boom, now you're trying out for the next one. That's 4 years later.
No. Wait. What?
Like, basically when you were told no on that first roster, right? And then what was that, like, did that World Cup already happen, and then now we're afterwards? Or?
No. So we tried out in 2022. I didn't make it. It's still 2022. I have a great season with the Rebellion. And then that's like in April, May, June, the national team that made that which I wasn't on that roster, that isn't happening until August.
Got it.
Right? So you have time to prepare.
Yeah.
You go, so it's the same year is what I'm saying. So within that year, even though I didn't make it, I get a text from, her name is Callie Brownson. She is, I think, an assistant wide receiver coach for the Cleveland Browns. Nice. And she's also our head coach for the U.S. national team. She sent me a text. She's like, "Hey, AG, when you get a chance, can you give me a call? This is Callie." And so I remember just feeling like, no way, it's going to happen. Yeah. I'm going to call her, and she's going to tell me I made the team. There's a spot for me now. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I just remember that feeling. And she hadn't even told me yet, but I'm like, something is going to happen. Yeah. Something amazing is going to happen right now. So I quickly get whatever I was shopping for, go outside, immediately call her. And she basically said, someone got hurt, and I was the next person up. Wow. Yeah. And then literally, everything made sense. Yeah. There was a reason why I didn't just give up. There was a reason why I stayed the course, like I said. Yeah. And talked to God and prayed and trusted. I continued, instead of having a bad attitude about it. Yeah. And I was angry, and I let my anger and frustration of not making the team and, a bunch of other things, like I said, give me motivation for how I played the season out with my Rebellion team. Yeah. But I stayed positive in the sense that my time is coming. I just need to wait, and I just need to be patient, and I need to do the work. Yeah. But it's coming. And so when she called, it was just everything came full circle. Yeah. And it was one of the greatest days of my life. I was so happy. Yeah. And so and that my Rebellion season ended, and then I went to where did we go? We went to Ohio, and we did training camp for 2 weeks for the national team. Mm-hmm. I mean, we lived, breathed, and ate football. We were a team. There was, but I think there was 200 people that tried out, and only 40. It was a 45-man roster. Wow. So.
And was this stuff where the team's paying for you to go out there? Did you have to fund your own money? Because there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, clearly. Yeah. So.
I had to fund my own money. I created a GoFundMe account, and I had a lot of people reach out and send me money through the GoFundMe or via Venmo. We all had to do that. Really, I mean, I remember writing on my car and like, putting my Venmo on there with like a little message.
Yeah.
And so if people, and I got people like, just a stranger, have fun in Finland, or good luck.
Community support.
Yeah. So just posting on social media about it, reaching out to people, and they helped me fund my flight. We had to pay for everything. Yeah. And that is basically,
it's part of the sheer motivation of making that happen, which you did make happen, and it went well.
Yeah. So and that's women's football. Women's tackle football, we fund ourselves. We have our own player fees and all this stuff. We get a lot of like free stuff when we do like all-stars, and like when we got to the national team, I got a ton of like free gear, but we have to fund our own, everything on our own. So that is where ultimately like our league, the WNFC, we want to get it from like us paying to play to us getting paid to play.
Totally. Yeah, and it's still on the newer end of things in terms of, human sports history in general. So that makes complete sense. Yeah. And you and your peers are part of that blossoming into something that eventually, and maybe won't even be our time, but maybe people will be getting paid for that. So that makes sense. And one thing you mentioned earlier, just because I know you mentioned like, okay, maybe you're not super religious, but you had a moment of faith where you basically said, okay, I know I'm putting in the work. Now I have to trust that this will pan out, or now I have to have faith in myself that this will pan out. And that kind of ties back to that optimism where it's like, okay, you could be negative about it, but if you choose to be optimistic about it, that may have even helped you get through the additional training and through the ups and downs, and basically until seeing it to the end, right? Okay, so then so boom, you made the team out of nowhere, super awesome. Now you're training for it, and then what happens after that Ohio training? Because maybe it's like within the year you're gonna fly out to Finland, right?
Yeah, so we train for 2 weeks, and then we fly from Ohio to Finland together as a team. And how long were we there for? Feels like so long ago. I want to say we had to have been there for...
I've never even been to Europe. That's super cool.
That was my first time flying internationally, so that was a great experience. I think we were there for 2 weeks, give or take. So maybe it was like a month in total that I was with the national team. And so we trained in Ohio. We flew to Finland, and we played game after game until we made it to the championship. And there was just so much that went into to making it to the championship and winning it all. Yeah. Winning, a world championship. Yeah. It required, like, we were getting up early, we were eating together, we were putting film practice, we were on the field. Like, we have our saying was like gold standard. And so there was a lot of things that goes into being a championship level team. Yeah.
And it's not an individual sport. I mean, you're clearly, like you said, you're training together, you're eating together, you guys are the best of friends, right? Yeah.
And just in and out, we were just always together. And it's hard to it really is hard to explain how.
Probably just tunnel vision when you're looking back on it, right?
Not just that, but like anytime someone asks me like, oh, like how was your trip? It's really hard for me to explain to someone all that went on. Yeah. Because it was like you had to be there. Like, we just were around so many inspirational people. We all wanted the same thing. Our coaches really wanted to help us, and just were very motivated, and it was just a great experience.
Yeah, probably one of the best experiences in your life, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, that's super cool. And like, and that was 2022, right? So then, boom, you're now a world star. What was it like, let's say, I guess back before winning it, were there any unexpected hurdles that you guys experienced? Either maybe someone getting hurt out of the blue, maybe, I don't know. I'm just trying to think, because I know a lot of times, like, there's always some last minute, unexpected hurdle that you got to roll with the punches to eventually get through it. So I'm just trying to see if something like that.
On the national team, we had some people that got hurt and they couldn't play in our championship game. Yeah. So that was really heartbreaking for them because you work so hard to get here. You last all the way through training
that's
camp.
soul crushing. That's horrible.
Yeah. So that was really hard for them. But we just had to keep doing what we were doing. We had to use the people that were there, and we're all important. We all matter, and so we continued to do what we were doing and play for them. And I'm trying to think if like we had any hurdles. I don't want to say we have the hurdle of like we've won every year. The national team, the U.S. has won a world championship every 4 years.
Oh wow!
Right, so we're undefeated. So
we're
have
the best
hurdle
in sports in that sense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I wish that the men's soccer team was great, but it's just there's other sports men are playing in the U.S. before, so. Yeah. Yeah,
and so you have the hurdle of like defending your legacy.
Totally.
We don't.
The pressure, yeah.
Yeah. So there's that hurdle in itself.
Yeah. And how much would you say? Because what I appreciate at least about your story is like you put in the hard work, but you were also very conscious about your mental, both well-being and kind of how you were framing things. Like, one, trying your best to remain optimistic. Two, knowing that even if you're running into these kind of hurdles or not getting on the roster initially, you're still going to bust your ass, probably even harder. And I know that, again, both with sports and outside of sports, a lot of people who either feel very, very confident or even are very grateful and happy are usually ones that experience some higher form of adversity. So like even if you talk to like, let's say, people who have had cancer, like there's a lot of people who are insanely happy and they had cancer back in the day and they're like, well, of course I don't wish that on anyone, but like I really grew as a person for overcoming that.
Yeah.
So I know that, again, that happens to be some human nature kind of common denominator that happens in a lot of these things and something that sounds like either you were conscious about it or unconscious about it, but you were doing it. You know what I mean?
I think that I was unconscious about being optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm only now realizing that I was optimistic because I'm talking to you now.
Yeah.
Which is great. So
well, and a lot of people use faith that way as well. You know what I mean? Where it's that more easy way to be optimistic. It's like if I can almost surrender and accept the fact that someone may be assisting me here or looking after me. Now it's easier for me to not think about every little step and every little kick of the ball,
I never thought about it like that, but I guess I was optimistic with just staying the course and, continue, even though I didn't make the roster.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to stop.
Yeah.
I was going to train for the next 4 years to make that next roster. And so it just made sense.
Yeah, and I know that so that the book I was talking to you about earlier, Grit. So part of like that whole analysis and the science behind grit and is like one, of course, everyone's got their own level of talent, but there was one like principle in there where it says talent times effort equals skill, but skill times effort equals achievement. So now you're basically seeing there's more of a weight on on effort. So it's like regardless of your scenario, control your controllables, put in the dirty work, and you'll have a higher likelihood of achieving success. And again, I mean, that seems to be what happened here. So.
Yeah, that reminds me of the quote, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Have you heard of that
totally,
before? Yeah, so that's something that like I kind of live by because I don't think that like naturally I am like, I don't know if I like naturally I'm an athlete. Like I'm an athlete, but playing football has not come naturally. Those skill sets have not been easy for me. I really had to work at like perfecting that, and I'm still not where I want to be.
Of course.
But that's why it's like I might not have I didn't have the skill when I first started out, but I worked hard. And so I'm a firm believer in like if you work hard, I just made a post yesterday on Instagram. It's like I'm not saying like if you work hard you're gonna succeed. Totally. Like it's a gamble. Like you just because you work hard or you're there,
you may not always win it.
You may not always win it.
Yeah.
And that is a gamble. And so but I do think that like hard work beats talent when it doesn't work hard. So and
it's one of my mottos is just control your controllables because there's so much crap out of your control. And there's so much limited energy and willpower each people have on a day-to-day basis. So like even, I learned this like, let's say sitting in traffic, you can be as angry as you want. You're not freaking going anywhere. It's like, do I want to channel that energy into being angry? do I want to channel that energy into something else?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So same concept where control your controllables.
Control your controllables.
Yeah, I know it's kind of, I don't even know where I learned that one, but it's in a bunch of,
No,
tends to overlap in a bunch of books as well.
Yeah, no, I've heard it before too. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Control your controllables.
Okay, so then I guess looking ahead now, now that you've experienced a lot of success, you know kind of more about yourself. It's sounds like, which I agree with, it's an ever-growing process. You're forever learning. You're never done trying to improve, right?
Yeah.
Like, what would you say is next for you, both in the world of like football and then maybe outside of football, like because of stuff that you learned, but you know, we'll leave it at that, and then I'll maybe have some more questions.
Can you repeat the question?
Like what like moving forward now that you've learned everything that you've learned, the good
Okay.
and the bad,
Okay.
what's next for you?
As far as football goes,
Sure.
I feel like I haven't even really like tapped into all that I can do.
Yeah.
I think that I can offer this sport more. I've been playing a little bit more slot receiver. I don't know if, do you watch football? You know, it's a wide receiver.
Okay.
And so
The offensive position.
Offensive position.
Requires fast person.
Fast person
Okay.
and hands, you
Got
know,
it.
catching the ball. So I've been dabbling in that, and that's been
Nice.
fun for me.
Yeah.
So I think that in the next couple of years, I'll probably see a transition of like being a running back to more of a slot back. You
Got it.
know, I think that I'm still not done with the running back position. I think that I have a couple more, you know, maybe 1 or 2 more good years left in me. I really want to continue to be a better running back than I am each year.
Yeah.
And so I want to do that, but also I'm having fun playing the slot position, and so we'll see where that takes me. Girls flag football is on the rise right now, I think.
Yeah.
So I just had a couple people offer me some positions to coach flag
Nice.
for high school, and so I'm gonna dabble in that and practice that, give back to my community.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about that. I can teach these girls. I mean, football is you learn so many life lessons about life through football, and so I can just kind of take what I've learned and, you know, coach these girls and, you know, be a leader for these ladies that I'm going to be coaching this
Yeah.
summer and moving forward. So I'm excited about that, and I'm just finishing school strong.
Yeah.
Graduating next year. I'm gonna
Nice.
be so excited about that. That's
Yeah.
a relief. So we'll see. You know, we'll see where things go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I like, because that was going to be my next question, was like, do you perceive you getting involved with other people interested in this sport? And it sounds like you are.
Yeah.
Because one, you love it yourself. You're probably just by nature already involved in stuff outside of just the training on the pitch. Like, you guys are probably doing events. You guys are probably,
Yeah.
right? Like, so
Yeah.
what does that look like? And do you imagine yourself continuing trying to scale being involved in that?
Yeah, I really like it. It can be like nerve-wracking at first, just because like we our rebellion team, we volunteer our time at like girls flag football camps, and so we'll go out there like as a team and help train these girls.
Yeah.
And so those girls, they actually support us, and they've come to our games before, and it is like the coolest thing, because like all of these little girls are like coming up to me after the game and taking pictures with my
Yeah,
helmet.
pro athlete.
You know, like
celebrity.
that was this year for me, and I was shocked. Like literally, like they remember me, and I just see that how much they love football and how much they love watching us play.
Yeah.
And so it's just a reminder that, you know, like you said, like I'm probably never gonna get paid for playing football in my lifetime, but maybe in their lifetimes, if they want to transition from flag to tackle,
Yeah.
they're gonna get that opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, and so that is amazing. And so it just puts into perspective about like being, you know, a good role model, you know, on the field, and,
Yeah.
and being a good teammate, and showing good sportsmanship. These people are watching.
Yeah. Well, it feels
especially-
good that kids are looking up to you, you know?
It does, but it does add a little bit of pressure, like, okay, like, what am I posting on social media? Because I know some of these girls, you know, follow me, and I want to post inspirational things and positive things for them.
Totally.
And so I think you kind of asked, like, how it was, like, after, like, winning a world championship to,
Yeah.
you know, now. And, like, I wanted to kind of touch on, like, from 2022 till now, there's been a lot of pressure. like for me, I felt like there was, you know, a little bit more pressure. People know about me and people are scouting for me, and they know that I'm a big player on the Rebellion, and so
you have perspective.
Yeah, and so I have to be mindful that like people are doing their due diligence and trying to stop me. So on the field, you know, and you know off. So I just it's been tough. There's been a lot of like recognition like from the league, you know, and so it's been a little hard to handle at times.
Yeah.
And so just because I've never really had like this type of
weight on your shoulders.
Yeah, and just being a good, you know, continue to, you know, my mom always says, like, be humble and, you know, remember where you came from and stuff like that. And so just trying not to let some of those things, you know, get to my head, because I want to continue to be the person that I am.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's some, you know, some struggles that I'm battling with myself. But
for sure.
Definitely think the future... Not sure what the future has in store, but I do know that I want to keep pursuing football and just giving back to the sport that's given me so much.
Yeah, totally. And I well, of course, like it makes perfect sense. I'm not surprised by it, but I've also seen that the athletes that people look up to are the ones that have a good, humble attitude, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't like seeing the divas on the field, right? It's usually the ones you're respecting are the ones who are a lot more modest or humble in that sense, even though they're the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, not surprised that that's being channeled like from you. And one thing that you brought up was like your mom. So like I'm always interested in just in the world of psychology, like, you know, different, you know, nature versus nurture, right? Like there's always experiences that people had that clearly shaped how they operate today and their mindset towards the future. And family is a big part of that, like both in my situation and I'm assuming yours as well.
Yeah.
But like, would you mind kind of summarizing like how you felt your parents supported you both in and outside of sports, because that clearly shaped who you are like today?
Yeah. The email that you sent to me was like how you were like, you know, tough love and stuff like that.
Totally.
I think that I had a more tough love growing up.
Yeah.
More so from my mom. My mom has always been really strict on me. She's not the most positive person in the world, at least for me growing up. And but then, you know, so I have her, love her dearly. She's one of my number one fans. But then I have my dad, who is kind of the opposite of my mom. Is very positive and optimistic, also supports me. So my mom's like the tough love, and my dad's like the supporter. So I have like a little bit of both. But nonetheless, they've both supported me. Like they have been at every single game that I've ever had.
Yeah.
Soccer, in the rain, in high school. Remember, it's raining, it's cold.
Yeah.
I look to the sideline, my parents are there. You know, so I've always had their support. But as far as like, you know, I think they just raised me to be tough, to not let anyone tell me that I can't do something. But then also, like, I remember at a young age, my mom would tell me that, like you're younger and you go on the monkey bars.
Yeah.
And she'd want to help me. I'm like, no, I got it. I want to do it myself. So I was like, okay. So that's how my mom, like, explains who I am. It's like, you've always wanted to do things on your own. You've never wanted anyone to help you.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, that mindset that I have now, I've had when I was younger.
Ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I have my parents supporting me. But I'm trying to think of, like, how else I was raised. But
I mean, that says a lot already, you know, because like, you know, even thinking about myself, I felt like my parents were the same way, kind of on the opposite end, where my dad was really tough love, strict, knowing that, like, hey, you're capable of a whole bunch, and like, I don't want to hold you back, and I want to guide you in the right direction, and like, but give you freedom. But, you know, if you stumble, I'm going to be there to kind of wag my finger at you. Versus like my mom, on the other hand, was always very, very loving and like wanted to help support. And I think the balance of both of them is what I think allowed me to, at least I feel like I have a good head on my shoulders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I felt like, you know, if maybe I had one too much versus the other, maybe it wouldn't have worked out so well, and maybe even in your situation too.
Yeah, probably. And like I said, like my mom, she's always been like, you need to stay humble. You need to remember where you came from. don't, even my dad is like that too. He's like, hand the ball to the ref after you make a touchdown. You don't need a cheer. Just go hand the ball to the ref. You've been here before. So they've always, kind of told me things like that growing up. But yeah.
Nice. And then I guess like one good area to like wrap up on like the whole conversation, because I'm interested in, or have been more, at least in the recent past, in terms of like, like we live in San Diego. The rest of the country is a lot different, let's say, right? Like every part of the country is going to be unique. But like fortunately for us, we live in a very diverse background, right? People are all sorts of ethnicities and nationalities, all that stuff. Like my mom's Vietnamese, came from Vietnam to the U.S., right? And like that kind of helped shape a lot of like myself and like my siblings. You are Hispanic, I believe, right? Is your mom first generation? Is your grandma? Like, do you mind sharing a little bit of that? Or if you have insight into that, not everyone does.
So my biological dad, he was born in TJ. So he was first generation. And then my mom was from Texas. And so my parents, I don't know where my mom's side of the family like originated from, but
she's Hispanic as well.
She's Hispanic, yeah. Both my mom and my bio dad, and so they, let's see, my grandma was born in Texas too. So they went from Texas and they moved to California. My family stayed in the Bay Area, and my mom was the only one that, out of her siblings, to move away from the Bay Area. She went to San Diego State. She was the first generation to graduate. And then she had me here in San Diego, and she raised me on her own for a little bit until I met my stepdad. So we come from a Hispanic background. I love talking to my, grandma about like where we came from and like everything that she went through. And like each generation gets better, right? So like my grandma went through a lot. And she was working in the fields, and then she gives her kids a better life than she had, right? And so then my mom gets her degree, and now she has me and my brother, and now we have a better life. Like each generation, it gets better and better. And so that's basically it that I can think of.
Well, I mean, the key takeaway for me is that at some point, whether conscious or not, a value was instilled to produce betterment for the next generation. So your grandma wanted better life for her kid, your mom wanted better life for you and your brother, and then I'm assuming maybe if you have a family someday, you're probably going to want better for them, or to always keep growing. And again, like my family's the same way. So awesome. Well, that could be a good place to stop, I guess. One thing I do want to try to get in the habit of is like, if you were to have one lesson or piece of advice for the young adults, technically anyone, but maybe more young adults, because I think they need a little more motivation. But what would you say like one piece of advice is? Mine's always the control your controllables, or like maybe drink more water. It's totally.
Seriously, speaking of water, my one piece of advice. It's a tough question because I feel like there's so many great things you can say. And it's for the younger adult population.
Like almost if you were to talk to yourself at 17, let's say 18, what the heck would you tell yourself?
I don't want to say never give up because everybody says that. But probably, I don't know if I want to say this because like I just made a post about it, but like sometimes like I can be really like blunt, and so like what I really want to say, it's not like the most like encouraging thing, is like you aren't entitled to anything. Like you're not entitled to getting trophies and getting ribbons. Like, that's not how life works. You don't get that.
You gotta earn it.
You have to earn it. And sometimes you work hard and you may earn it and you still don't get it. So life doesn't always work out in your favor.
Won't be handed things.
No, you're not going to be handed anything. So I think that's important for people to know, especially the younger, this next generation. It's like you can't have everything handed to you. You got to work for it. So I think that's something that I would tell the younger population.
Well said. And I think it totally has a lot of weight in it. And again, like out of all the psychology books or philosophy books that I've just kind of been into or like read, that's a big part of it, is like personal agency, extreme ownership, and put in the dirty work, basically. Like, it's going to take time, and clearly it works out. So
Sometimes.